Hey, what's up? I'm Will Ross with Burn the Ship Podcast, a business podcast focused on business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs and sharing their journey with the community. I have got two new friends of mine, two new connections that are behind Seven Sisters Scones. I've got Farrah and Hala. Is that correct? Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And they're both here with what I think is a pretty cool story. I got a chance to get a little bit of background, and as you guys know, I don't typically try to over talk with our guests so that I can kind of get it out of their mouth for the first time. But if you guys don't mind, I'd love it if you kind of introduced yourself. Quick little snapshot. Seven Sisters Scones. You guys have been producing scones for consumption. You've been selling for 10 years, roughly. We're celebrating a decade in the business.
Yep.
That's awesome. All right. So if you all want to just kind of jump into, what was, I know before 10 years ago, just kind of how the origination, but also just, a little background on you both will be awesome.
Okay. So my name is Farrah and Hala. I'm the seventh sister. I'll put it that way. I also do most of the marketing and e-commerce sales and that kind of stuff for both Seven Sisters Scones, which is the e-commerce part, plus Seven Sisters Kitchen, which is the cafe part. And I moved down here from Boston to help Hala, who is
I guess we're both owners in this. I tend to take care of the more production management portion of it. I'm the one that creates the scones, the flavors, and everything else to do with the kitchen part. So we kind of complement each other that way.
yeah.
Um,
Well, you were also so Hala was really the creative genius behind the initial idea.
And that's what yeah.
Yeah, she started it because her husband wanted a portable breakfast, and she went and she bought like a box of pre-mixed scone mix, hated it, and decided she can do better than her on her own.
which
And
wasn't very difficult at that point,
yeah,
honestly.
so she ended up making these scones for her husband, and he loved them. And then she started like making a flavor of, some of
Well, not really, because I did make them for my husband, but I got bored of making the same one. So I started making different flavors because I'm that kind of person. I hate making the same thing over and over again. So I went from cranberry orange and then I did blueberry. And he'd always say, "This is really good, but I like cranberry better, the cranberry orange better." I'm like, dang. So I would want to up the ante and make something different. And I got into like what, three, four flavors before you guys started getting involved. Well, can you make this flavor?
can I make that flavor?
And then my friends got into it. And before I knew it, I started with one flavor and then I had 30 and then we had 40 and then we traveled for Thanksgiving and the sisters all convened and said, you got to set this. You got to open a business because this is ridiculous. There's people walking into your house picking up scones from your freezer on a constant basis.
I wanted to make sure you mentioned that. That was one thing that hung with me from our story, was just that there was this freezer and it became kind of the free reign of everybody who needed a gift or needed this or needed that was, just swinging through. And I was like, come on, there's something more here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was the one like I remember just sitting here and I was visiting her at the time and like she kept making these scones and I'm like, I love your scones, but there's only about 6 or 7 of us at the time. Like, how can we eat all these? But they were just constantly disappearing. And what I would notice is she would make them, freeze them, and then people would come in, grab a bunch frozen and leave. So she ended up coming back after that, after this whole thing, and we sat her down. We're like, okay, you got to do it, and we came up with the name and everybody. And she was just like, listen, I'm gonna go to my first farmer's market, and I'm just gonna show you guys that this isn't gonna work.
Because everybody loves everything. No, everybody loves everything for free. We all know that. And I'm looking
That's a great point. That is a fair point.
when you're going to have to pay for it, it's a whole different game. So I'll entertain the idea. I'll go to the farmer's market and I'll sell and see what happens. And so I think I spent a lot more money than I made that day. But what surprised me was the people that showed up actually liked it and bought it. I'm like, oh, maybe there is a business in this.
Yeah.
And so we started going into farmers markets and kind of expanded that way, worked out of a kitchen, started out in my kitchen initially. Then to get to the other farmers markets, we had to do a shared kitchen. And then from there, I realized I was spending so much time, cleaning before I was doing anything and cleaning after, that it was ridiculous. I just had to either take it seriously or move on.
Mhm.
And so,
So she found this place, and I swear she waited till I was under 9 feet of snow. And
Timing is everything.
and my kids hadn't been in school for like a week, and she called me, and I can still see it. I'm staring out at my like yard, and I can't get out to the yard because of the snowbanks.
Right.
And she goes, "Hey, you want to move to sunny Georgia and like sell scones?" And I'm like, "Yes." Like,
Sign me up.
God. You know? So, it was kind of like lucky. Sometimes fate plays a part because my husband's job also went virtual, and it all kind of convened, and we moved to Georgia and we opened it up in
Yeah.
Was
September
that 2015
2015.
or so? Okay. Okay. So that's 2015.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea and I don't want to get too far away, but I just want to point that how many flavors have you actually had
Oh,
over that 10 years? I mean, you went up to 40 fast on me, and I was thinking low numbers.
no, I have over 100 something flavors right now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I stopped counting because there's so many that we started doing that we retired because they're so expensive to make, or
Sure.
they're such a niche kind of scone or flavor. Um, because when you get into big production, you kind of have to go with what sells across the board. And so
Right.
that's, so we keep making new ones because you have to kind of, the creative aspect of it is the part that I'm passionate about. So
Sure. I can see that. Yeah.
that's the part that keeps me kind of going. And so I'm always looking for new flavors or doing different things.
So 2015, you've got your sister. It was the two of you at
Mhm,
this point, right?
mhm.
And you guys are starting to, you're getting more in the commercial side of production levels. Move beyond the farmer's market. What's that kind of next step look like for you guys?
Mm. So we opened the cafe. That was the next step, and
Oh, okay. Nice.
we could really survive on scones and tea
Tea and coffee.
and coffee, and that we were quickly educated on that wouldn't work.
Right.
So we
But you have to
started.
understand, we're in the South, right? So had I
Mm-hmm.
called them biscuits, I think I would have had the line out the door. But because they're
Yeah.
called scones, it took us a little bit to kind of ramp up.
Exactly. So we started, and we ended up kind of expanding the cafe menu. But the next really big thing that happened was we got on QVC.
Right.
And
Yeah. Okay.
the biggest advantage of going on QVC, I think, was that we figured out how to do massive production with what we had, right?
Right.
Because making 1,000 scones is very different than making the 25,000 that QVC wanted. And we figured out literally, I still don't know how we did it. I think it was musical chairs. It was
It
just
really
like,
is.
it was just like,
What would have to be?
yeah, moving things around from place to place.
And that's one thing I'm really good at. So it was kind of nice to have that challenge
Right.
to kind of see that even though we're super small, we can be truly mighty in
Yeah.
how we produce.
Absolutely. Would
That
you
was fundamental for us.
would you think of that that QVC moment as like that burn the ship moment for you guys, where it was like this is on, or was it before that? I mean, a lot of times, especially if you're working with a family member, I mean, there's that kind of commitment to you because you kind of got to vet it in your head of like, is this going to work? Even working with a family member, I mean, that's who knows, right? So when is that in that moment or?
I think it was definitely a flashpoint.
For us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was definitely a flashpoint because it prepped us for so many things. Like, obviously, we didn't know it at that moment, but the
Mm-hmm.
things that were coming down the line, it really prepped us for. I mean, when COVID hit,
Right.
obviously the cafe, which had been the majority of the business, we were shipping from day one, but the cafe
Okay.
had been the majority of the business up until that point. It tanked. Like retail traffic disappeared, right?
Mm-hmm. It was gone.
We were lucky that because we were in Georgia, we were considered essential, so we were never
Sure.
forced to shut down. But what happened at the same time was everybody was looking for food to ship. So
Or gifts or
yeah, and had already vetted that
You
we could.
built this. Yep.
Yeah,
did that.
we had the boxes, we had the branding, we had all that was in place, while other places were maybe scrambling to get there. We were ready.
Right.
That
Because we had
really
already
took
been
off.
doing it for several years at that point.
Yeah, and then we got an opportunity to be on the Today Show, and Good Housekeeping's gift guide, and that was just another flashpoint. So it was like
Awesome.
those were the two flashpoints, I would say,
Mhm.
of kind of how the business and the shipping especially took off. And once we had that shipping volume, we had proven the
Mhm.
concept.
Yep.
Now we can get into the take and bake aspect.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So you kind of have these two flashpoints. You guys have endured some COVID times, right?
Oh, yeah.
What are some things that are in you all's background together, but also individually, that kind of built that strength to get through and to kind of be, I wouldn't say dependent upon one another, but trusting of one another to be there beside each other to kind of be partners in this?
So we have to backtrack a little bit
Yeah.
because when we
Please.
established this business, there was one conversation, and it was a difficult conversation because for me, being honest and open and making things clear is essential.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a business at the end of the day.
100%.
Siblings at the same time.
Yep.
So I went to Farrah and I said, look, honesty is one of the most important things. I love you. Our sisterhood relationship is more important than anything in the business. The minute this starts to get in the way, it's game over. I am not going to stay and allow that portion of our lives to take over this portion of our lives because that's much more important to me. So should that happen,
Beautifully said.
we laid out what we would do at that point, and that would be what we would follow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because both of us, I think, were crystal clear about what was important to us. And at no point, I think, from that conversation has that ever been altered or changed.
No.
Awesome.
And so when we had that set up, and I think working with family, you really need to have that difficult conversation day one. Have clarity, have things written out, make sure everybody understands everything. And that way it's never in question. You're both clear, you're both
Yeah.
following game plan, the initial
Yep.
game. And I think for us, establishing that was essential to whatever came in after.
Mm-hmm.
And there are also like times, clarity on roles, I think is also very, very important. Like what's your role, what's
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
et cetera. I think the other two things I would say that are very important is one, always assuming good intent,
Yeah.
which for us was easy, but
Easy.
I find in other families, sometimes that's not so easy.
Sure.
It's the assumption of good intent. And then the second thing was turning it off. I mean, there are times when we will actively say we can't talk about the business
Yeah.
because it can seep into the personal
Everything.
relationship. Yeah, it seeps into everything, and your families are involved, and it's like now you're out to dinner with each other and you're talking about business rather than reconnecting. So
Being there. Yep.
those two things, I think putting those in place has really helped as well.
So to back to the family component a little bit, at what point was it that, I mean, obviously everyone liked the scones because they're stealing them out of the freezer from you guys, right? And I mean, they're just disappearing on you. But what was that like kind of initial reaction from the family when you guys are saying this is what we're going to do? I mean, was it a very supportive? Was it, I mean, how have those
Oh, yeah.
kind of pillars in your life been influential to kind of get to this point?
Yeah, so we come from a family of entrepreneurs. Like owning a
Okay.
business is kind of
Part of our
it's part of our
DNA.
DNA. Yeah. So
Huge. Okay.
they were super supportive. Even like I think four of our sisters flew out just
During QVC. to
during
help us out.
QVC, during the grand
Grand
opening.
opening.
Like anytime that we were like really in a jam, they just
That's special.
they'd fly out and come and they would wash dishes.
I mean, they did everything. We all did everything. And that's the beauty of it, is that it's not just because we own it doesn't necessarily mean we don't clean toilets and wash dishes and bake.
Right.
And I think we try to do this on a constant basis by example.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they see the siblings coming and doing the same exact thing, it builds good morale and a good work ethic within the business
100%.
itself.
100%. I think that's one of
Yeah.
the misconceptions a lot of folks have with, when they start to do something of that kind of grandeur of being a business owner is how many hats you have to wear, how much of the dirty work is going to take up a lot of your time in the beginning, and even later on, right? And sometimes you're the only one that you trust to do it, and sometimes that's the dirty jobs, right? So
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that. So
Well, I'm not to interrupt you, but
no, you're great.
one of the things that when I was in my MBA, I had this entrepreneurship teacher, and he said, if you're ever going to get in business with someone, you ask them this simple question, which is, do you want to be rich or do you want to be king? And it sounds like a weird question, but it boils it down to something very specific. Are you looking to be able to walk into a party and say, I'm a business owner and I have this expense card and da da da? Or are you going to do what it takes to
it.
make money?
That's
So
it. That's,
I've used that 100 times, and believe me, I've even gotten into relationships with people who said they wanted to be king and regretted it. So it does
yeah.
work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great way to kind of define that. You can see it. It's, are you going to put the work in? You
Mm.
know, what are you willing to do? You know, you have a lot of different types of kings that are out there. So, I mean, but normally that king is looking out for oneself versus, you know, looking out for those that are in his congregation. You know, I think that's become very clear to me with other folks maybe that I've worked for in the past of just kind of how that treating of others is. And I just think that mentality, especially working for somebody or buying from somebody, to see that they're putting that effort in to build what is now Seven Sisters Scones or whatever your brand may be, it makes it so much easier to get behind. So QVC, Good Morning America. How, first of all, for those who are, how did you find those avenues, right? Like, are those things that you were pursuing? Is that something you guys were marketing towards, or was that something that found you?
No, we went
We-
actively. The QVC one,
found us in an indirect way.
Okay.
But the Today Show we pursued.
we pursued
We're
that.
constantly pursuing.
Okay.
Farrah does a really great job of constantly, reaching out.
Pitching media.
Absolutely.
It's PR.
Okay.
It's constant pitching. It's reaching out to people. Hey, I saw you were going to do a gift guide. Hey, I saw, the Good Housekeeping one was kind of kismet because we caught this Good Housekeeping editor when she was on maternity leave during COVID and was really hungry. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, I mean,
It's good timing, right? Hey.
so she got it. But I will, just because I always like to think of the audience when I do these podcasts, one thing I will tell you about PR outreach is please be generous. Like this Good Housekeeping person included us in her gift guide. She was the one that got on the Today Show to discuss her gift guide picks, right?
Okay.
Reached out to all of the gift guides and she's like, hey guys, could you send me some samples? Most people sent her one or two things, because they're concerned about the cost. I get it. We sent her 2 to 3 boxes of scones. So here's this woman stuck in her apartment, right? Needing to make this thing look beautiful. Everyone else and she puts out everyone's stuff and it's a quarter full. And then
Right.
she puts out our stuff and it fills up the table. And what happens? They feature us first. They give us the most time. Which is
That's
bold, right?
I mean, it makes all the sense in the world, but it's one of those things that not everybody thinks about, right? And it is like, why not just put yourself out there as much as you can? And I know that the expense is a matter that everybody has to keep in mind, no matter where you're at in business. But at the same time, when you have those opportunities to promote yourself like that, why not? Why not jump at it?
Yeah.
And how much of an impact did that make, genuinely, from those sort? I mean, you said these are flashpoints, but you're seeing, I mean, multiples of your audience just is growing, right? And seeing folks that are coming back. I'm sure, and then also the new audience coming right out of those. Just you're on people's televisions. That's a great. That's you're the first person that I've had on the podcast that's had that type of exposure. So, kudos to you, but also a little celebrity action going on in here too. So I love it. What are some of the things that you guys are focusing on now? You talked about the bake product. You've got the cafe. Your cafe is in Johns Creek and it's a northern suburb of Atlanta is probably the best way to put that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got, is it just scones and tea in there now, or are there other options there? Okay.
Actually, what we've done is we've taken the scone and redefined it in multiple ways. We do use it as a base for our breakfast sandwich. We use it as a base for sandwiches in general. We do, like, for instance, chicken sausage gravy topped, instead of a biscuit, it's on a scone.
That's awesome.
So
Okay.
we've taken the scone and kind of incorporated it into our entire menu. We make biscotti out of our scones. So whatever we
Okay.
sell that day, we make biscotti, and then so it's taking the scone and kind of expanding it so that it touches every aspect of what we do there. Our specialty
Absolutely, yeah.
is scones, so we
Yeah.
do it that way.
But the cafe does have a full
Full menu.
breakfast and lunch menu,
And you can get your eggs on, I mean, you can get your sandwiches on bread as well. It's not like we're forcing the issue, but even
Right.
though we introduced bread, a lot of people still have decided that they like it better on the scone because it's more flavorful. So
Sure. And this is just coming from someone who doesn't know, and please forgive me. What is the biggest differentiator between a scone and a biscuit and any other, kind of in that kind of
okay.
food product range?
So a scone is kind of a cross between a biscuit and a muffin in terms of texture and so forth.
Okay. Yep.
We've taken it and redefined it. We don't have what you would consider a standard English scone or Scottish scone, okay?
Okay.
That are crumbly, dry, where you have to use the
Right.
cream and the butter and all of that and the jams. We tend to do it so that you can open the package and actually eat it right there and then and be content with the flavor that you get. So our scones have a variety of textures and a variety of flavors. We make sweet and savory scones.
Okay.
Where you tend with biscuits to have more savory than sweet.
Absolutely. Yep.
Our scones tend to be, we have a whole line of savory as well as a whole line of sweet. So uh, I would say the best way to describe it is a cross between a muffin and a biscuit.
Perfect. And I'm a fan of scones, but I didn't know what necessarily the difference was. But I could also see with as many flavors that you guys have and being, the savory or versus the sweet, it's good to. I almost kind of lost my train of thought there.
It's all
If I
right.
can be honest with you. No, as far as the scone goes, though, it's
Hungry.
Yeah, that
yeah,
happened.
I am. You got me hungry. All right, so we're still on the journey of the scone. So now you're here in Atlanta. You've got an audience. You guys are a national company at this point. Are you shipping to Canada or any like outside the U.S.? Like,
We've shipped to all the 50 states at this point.
awesome,
Even
awesome.
Hawaii. No, we've
Yeah,
shipped to
not
Hawaii.
Canada.
Not
No,
Canada.
we're
No,
not
50
shipping.
states.
Yes, well, I mean, still, that's just to be. I mean, Hawaii, Alaska. Alaska's way up there. I've my parents are actually in Alaska right now, so I've been doing some facts on that in our meetings, and it's a big area. But small population, so that's pretty impressive to have that sort of a reach. What are some of the things so that just kind of keeping back onto the business, sort of element, and for those who are pursuing entrepreneurship, you guys have been successful. Let's put that out there, right? And you guys have defined this plan. You put it into play for 10 years. What sort of adjustments on the fly? What sort of kind of hurdles? What sort of those little difficulties have you guys seen that have been, let's call them, ultimately you look back that have been positives, that have been great shifts for you? I feel like a lot of our folks that are here, there's something that happens, and it's like, at the moment, I didn't know, but I'm so grateful because, and you may have already touched on some of those things.
So I have one.
Mhm.
So our was it a third showing? It was the second or third showing of QVC. And we were put on first on the show on that particular segment. And the announcer had hurt his back and didn't tell the audience. So he samples our scone and the man looks like he is in
He's in pain.
excruciating pain. Like I am sitting in my TV room watching him going, what is going on? Because if you've been in QVC, you know that there's a war room in the back of QVC. And this war room is in direct contact with these hosts. And they're watching the numbers. They're watching how many calls
Okay.
are coming in, how many orders, how many da-da-da. Let's say the host says bacon and they see the order show up, they go say bacon again. I mean, it is a
Really?
coordinated
Yeah.
orchestra of data, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The minute he did that, I'm like, they are in the war room in the back going,
Losing it.
because there are no
Yeah.
sales coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And they cut our time. And I remember like calling Hala. I think you were going, oh my God, because you have to do all, do you remember that? You put up all the inventory and this is
Right.
perishable inventory.
Yep. Yep.
Right? And that we had a bad showing. And
Horrible show.
horrible. It was, oh my God. And I remember just going to bed at that night going, oh my God, we have all this money out and we had a horrible showing and I don't know what we're going to do. But because we had this horrible showing, we had to get scrappy, right? Got a little scrappy. We figured out an affiliate program. We figured out coupons. We shift to Shopify. Like we had to put in all these things that ended up working out really well for us because we were kind of in this situation where it was do or die. Yeah, I still get anxiety remembering that.
Literally, I think at that moment we were looking at each other going, I don't know how we're gonna survive this,
Yeah.
but we are. We
Sure.
just we haven't figured out how yet.
I mean, and that's the
And that
thing.
was a bad thing taken, and a lot of great things have happened from that one bad thing.
Right.
And that's
Right.
sometimes, we were definitely ambitious. Like I would sometimes when I look back, I'm like, we really were probably not ready for that QVC thing.
Oh, no.
We were not ready for it, but we did it anyways. And It forced us to grow, and it's but I mean those are the kind of moments that you have where it really could have gone the other way at some point.
I mean, and I think most of those situations where you do stretch yourself and, it's those opportunities to grow can be such a pivotal moment, even if you don't know. Sometimes it's that struggle to get through it that actually it's what you get on the other side just based on, I didn't expect this scenario, but look what we were able to accomplish as a result of it. And that just makes all the difference in that confidence in your team member, in your brand, and whatever it may be. So I love hearing that. And thank you for sharing that with me because, yeah, I would have been very similar reaction. The QVC element is very intriguing to me. I think that's one of those. It's been around for a long time. There's now so many other ways that folks are buying. You guys have a website. You've got other distribution channels as well. But it is a great platform, and there's science behind it, right? And that's a big, like you're talking about this war room and just kind of how it plays. And what is that when you're saying as far as you had to have the product ready? With QVC, are they shipping your product for you, or is it shipping? You guys are shipping those orders, like because you've got to have them ready, right, within a certain amount of time to kind of manage
Yeah.
that.
So because of the requirements, the requirements that they have in terms of customer service, delivery,
Right.
et cetera,
Yep.
you have to get licensed with someone you have to basically use someone
Qualified.
that they have pre-qualified, right?
Yep.
So for us, we had to make all the scones, freeze it in boxes, ship it frozen to a distribution center that they
Okay.
approved, and then they shipped it frozen, right?
Okay.
But what that means is that it's basically the inventory is on consignment. So you put out all the money and then they only purchase what sells,
Right. Yep.
you know?
Yeah. And that's as long as you're selling it all, you're good. But when that,
Yeah.
those moments happen, you got to be able to pivot. And I love hearing that you guys did. That's huge. So talk a little bit more about COVID because you guys had everything in place, right? As far as your shipment, had to shut down the cafe at that moment. Are you guys in a different location than you were prior to COVID?
We're still in the same location. Actually, we
Great.
just shut down the cafe. The cafe stayed open.
Oh, I apologize.
We
Shifted-
shut down seating.
We
Yeah.
shut down seating.
Oh, okay.
Like people would drive, park, and we would hand them their food in the car, and then they would go away. So that aspect of the cafe stayed open. It just wasn't enough to sustain us. Had it not been for shipping picking up so quickly and us
Right.
pivoting, I don't think we could have stayed open through COVID. But we both knew, and we had an honest conversation with each other, and I looked at her and said, if we close, we're not opening again.
Yeah.
There's
We
just
knew
no
that.
way. There's just no way. So closing was not even an option for us at that
Gotcha.
moment. And so
Sure.
revved it up and worked the shipping aspect because that we could easily do.
Repurposed employees. I mean, that was
Right.
another thing. Like we wanted to keep these people employed, you know? And that was a hard one too, because, there were some people that definitely did leave because they had, health limitations that we were
Sure.
worried about, no problem. But overall, like anyone who wanted to work, we wanted to make sure to keep them employed. So we need to repurpose and retrain people too.
Which we
It
did.
was such a wild time, and it's wild to see how so many people manage that situation so differently. But and a lot of those positives are still around today, right? I mean, as far as food delivery and just kind of things being available, I don't love it, but I don't love all of them. Let me put it that way. But I do think there were some great changes and adjustments that came from something that was a terrible time in our country and on Earth. What is when you guys is it just the two of you now, or are there additional sisters involved?
It's just the two of us.
Always been just the two of us.
But
Just the two of you.
I mean, I say that it's just that we are the two of us are the ones that work it all the time. However, the others do have lots of opinions about things that we should be doing and should not be doing.
Funny how that works.
And generally speaking, when it goes above and beyond, we just tend to look at them and go, you're more than welcome to come and join us at any moment. And usually that quiets them down pretty quickly.
Yeah. I can hear that. What is it that's kind of you both have taken away by working with one another? You both have been very complimentary of what your skill set is, right? And kind of staying in your lane, creating those boundaries, which kudos to you. I mean, those are things that I wouldn't have known, you know what I mean? And you both said you had some background in entrepreneurship and business ownership, so I'm sure that helped. But I mean, what's been your takeaway of 10 years directly working with a sibling?
I think the best thing that I've gotten from her is definitely mindset. Like I call her Yoda. you know? No, there have been moments where I have
Yeah,
been just like losing it, like, oh my God, how are we gonna do, and she's just like, we'll figure it out. And she just moves on. I'm like, okay. And what that's taught me a lot about just, not going too high when things are high, not going too low when things are,
absolutely.
and really trusting that you will rise and you will figure it out. And that kind of mindset, I think, applies to everything. So that's,
Absolutely.
I think, my number one takeaway.
Yeah, mine, I've practically raised her, so
Yeah, that's true.
I always come from the perspective of she's my younger sibling, and I think once we started the business, that had to shift for me.
Sure.
Because then we're equals, right? And
Mm-hmm.
older, younger, still plays every once in a while, but for the most part, what I appreciate the most about her is the it's that energy of wonder that she doesn't realize she has a lot of the times. We call her psycho cat sometimes, but it's really that psycho kitten, but it's really that wonder that she has, and enthusiasm that just pops out and just kind of takes over. And then it moves you. It makes you
Sure.
that, oh my God, yes, we can do this. So even though I tend to be more even keeled and we'll figure it out and stuff like that, her bursts actually keep us going. So that's been her gift.
I mean, the QVC component, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I mean, there's definitely an element of fearlessness, right? To just kind of be going after these things and having these ideas. And I think that that's something that I admire, that I have continued to work on in my own kind of mentality of just like, if you don't ask, it's always a no. You know what I mean? And if you don't pursue it, if you don't put it out there, it's always just that it is nothing, right? No action is no action. That's all it is. And so it's great to have that, kind of counterbalance of one another, and to be able to appreciate that are two huge things. Um,
Yeah. Remember the Marcus Lemonis stuff?
Oh God.
So I'll tell you the story because it's just
Come
funny.
on.
I became obsessed with Marcus Lemonis when he did that. I'm like, I want to be on this man's show.
No. Beyond obsessed.
I mean, I did some,
A lot of things. Okay. I'm not even gonna give it away. She
I
just
emailed
was.
him.
She
No.
just wanted desperately to get on the show.
I mean, I emailed him, I engaged in all of his social media content. On administrative professionals day, I found he had a bunch of stores in Chicago. I found all the addresses, sent them scones,
Smart.
okay,
Very smart.
and said these are in honor of him. So his admins were calling him up and saying, thank you so much for the gift. This,
That's brilliant.
no idea. So he actually sent me an email. He's like, this was really smart of you.
That is. I
Yes.
love it.
So anyways, come to say, we apply, we get denied, applied, get denied. During COVID, he was doing these like Instagram lives. So I get on and I just like request to thinking this man thinks I'm this psychotic person. He is never gonna let me on. I am like literally freshly showered in my pajamas, right? And he lets me on the Instagram
Awesome.
live.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm trying to angle the camera.
Am I decent? Yeah, I hear you.
Decent, yeah. So we end up talking. He totally remembers us. Not only did he remember us, he was actually in Atlanta and had come, but we were closed.
No way.
Yeah. He says it. I still have the video. I'm like, are you kidding? But anyways, yeah. So we never ended up being on it. But I just tell people like that's I think what she's talking about, bursts of enthusiasm, is if I like want to try and get on someone's radar, I mean I will get on someone's radar.
I mean, look, we get pretty creative
Maybe that's
because
not
we'll
good
sit
way.
there. Yeah, I know. We'll sit there and we'll talk, and our imagination. I think because there is a fearless aspect to it. It's like, well, why can't we do that? What's the worst that's going to happen? They can throw it away in the garbage. We don't care.
Yeah.
But at least if we don't try, it's just never going to happen. So we both egg each other on sometimes a little too much, and get into a little trouble once in a while about how we do things. But you know what? It's fun. It actually
Absolutely.
it's a lot of, like I said, energy, enthusiasm, all of that stuff. So it's actually cool.
Yeah.
So what's the Farrah, the biggest kind of piece of advice for our audience as far as just kind of facing those fears of putting yourself out there, creating that self-doubt versus going forward and having those energy bursts or, actually the creative ideas. I mean, that's genius to send something in somebody else's name to all of their employees so then it gets back to them. I mean, I love that, right? I mean, those are very, I'm sure the types of things like this happen all the time, but we don't hear about it, and it's just like, oh, that's what happened or this happened. I mean, sometimes on Instagram you'll see some of these people that'll share this little tidbit or that bit, but that's unique. That's something that is I mean, you could replicate that as your own business owner if you just kind of process what your product is, who your audience is, who you're trying to do that with. But what's some of that kind of advice for others just to kind of take that step, if you will?
Yeah, I think the problem is when most people are thinking about that, they're thinking about what they can get.
Sure.
Think about what you can get. Think about what you can give.
Okay.
I'm doing him a favor.
Yes.
I was making him look good in the eyes of his employees.
100%.
Who is going to say no to that?
Right.
Right. So whenever I go, if I am approaching a big PR person or something like a big reporter, what do they want? They want fresh stories. They want interesting intakes. If I go to them saying, you should cover me because I'm the best, they're going to be like, no, I shouldn't. But if I go to them and say, hey, I know that you have this coming up and I wanted to give you this idea or this, or I'm going to put you in touch with someone. Who's going to say no to that?
Right.
Be of service. Always just, if you come at it from the angle of service, it really, and look, no expectation. Like when I sent those out, if he had never contacted me, I would have been totally fine with it.
No, she would have cried.
I would have cried, but I wouldn't have blamed him. I would have been
Right. And it wouldn't have been you're not quitting after that point. It's just another, it's part of the process, if you will.
Yeah. So just to get over that fear, just always look to be of service because I can't tell you how many people really don't understand how to be of service to others.
Oh, that's a fact. 100%. You're spot on. I mean, you couldn't have said that any better. And I appreciate hearing that so clearly. So thank you for that.
And not only that, but I think in the day-to-day operation, be of service too. I mean, when
Absolutely.
we have somebody walk into our store, they're like walking into our home.
Yeah.
They have the option to walk into a gazillion other places, but they chose us.
They
And
did.
we need to do right by that. And that's, it's a transaction at the end of the day, absolutely. But it can be a very pleasant one, a homey
100%.
one, a welcoming one, or it can be a very transactional one. Which way you're going to go? Who's going to remember? Which one is more apt to come back? The transaction
Right.
or the one that felt like, oh, I got a connection. And I think that's
100%.
missing with the day-to-day business stuff is this building connections, building communities.
Yep.
That would be my advice. I mean, look, we can all get inundated with the day-to-day stuff and feel overwhelmed and like we're headed nowhere or this is taking too long. That's for everybody. Everybody's going to go through that. I have never met a person that opened a business that didn't have at least some level of that. What keeps you going isn't the day-to-day stuff. It's that connection. There's reason. It motivates you to do bigger, better, because it's in service to. And I think that's where we both come from. And I think that's probably why we've lasted as long as we've lasted. I hear every day of really great bakeries closing, really great cafes closing. And it saddens me because I think
Sure.
the restaurant business right now in general is really facing a very, very, very harsh environment.
Sure.
So
From a number of different angles, I believe.
Exactly. You've got, economically where people are at. You've got the cost of commodities that are fluctuating day in and day out. You've got chain. Oh my God. One day you can get cups, the next day you can't. Kind of,
Oh,
so
like
it's
supply chain.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Employees. That can also be.
That's
Yeah.
a whole different kid.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. And it speaks well to how you treat your employees, right? And, we've had a number of folks who've been on here who've told their, kind of post-COVID story, and the employees were the number one thing, especially from the restaurant side, right? It's like, how can we keep these folks here? Because it's a family to them, right? And hearing that kind of message over and over of just like, we take care of our people first because our people take care of our customers, right? And that's so critical that sort of pecking order is there so that kind of, I don't know, trust is there for those who are your owners or your bosses or what have you. And just being able to trust that works that way, that the love is there. They're not going to turn on you should something negative happen out on the storefront, right? And so by building the right employees, I think is critical. And I feel like that's another piece.
Yeah.
Everything's more expensive. It's harder to get work. So yeah, that customer experience is huge. It's huge. Um, One other thing that you've talked about, and but the way, how did you say it to me earlier? It was the to turn it off, right? So the balance, right, and just kind of that mentality. What are some of the things that you guys practice? And I talk a little bit on my podcast here and there just about mental health and how critical I think that is, and it needs to be something that's out there. But it's really just kind of to break it down. It's like, what is that balance? Are you being present in that moment? But what are some of those things that you guys kind of practice, in your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, that create that balance for you guys to still have this energy and to still be driven to do what you do?
Well, she's got free therapy. I'm a psychologist. So
Oh, boom! There you go.
no, no, I exercise. I make sure I take, I take time to spend time with loved ones. I just recently have been able to find really great help where I've been able to take a weekend here and a weekend there,
It's huge.
to just rejuvenate. But I think for me, had it not been for kind of being able to leave and shut it down for a few hours, it's always in the back of your mind, in terms of, how you do things and so forth. But we've learned to shut it down so that we can, live our lives outside of the
You have
context.
to. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to give the other, your partner, your sister, that
Yes.
ability as well, too, both ways.
Yeah.
I think is huge.
I have
It's huge.
practices like I meditate, I journal, but also I think and Hala kind of taught me this, and I've had it reinforced with other things that I hear about. But having a process for when things get overwhelming,
Mhm.
right? So one of the things I asked, okay, the first it's acknowledgement. Yes, I'm overwhelmed. Why am I overwhelmed? Because of this. Is there anything I can do about it? Yes. Okay, go do it. If there's nothing I can do about it, then there's no use in worrying about it and being able to turn it off in that way. And just going, getting disciplined about going through that process because I do get like my mind whirls. Um,
Sure.
so just,
But having those things to kind of fall back on in those high stress moments is critical, right? And to be able to trust yourself because it's worked before, So it's like, yeah, this is what we do, and I think that's a great way to put it too. Is like, can I fix this? If yes, go do it. Don't overthink it. Don't get in your own way. And if you can't, lay it down. Like, be done. So I hear that. I'm trying to practice what I'm preaching over here. All right, so we are kind of getting a little bit towards the end. I've got a couple of just like pop up questions for you guys. What's each of your favorite scones? Is there a favorite? Is that a fair question? Is that unfair?
I'm gonna say beer and cheese because I'm a savory girl. So
Okay,
Mine for the longest time was the fig and goat cheese.
okay,
Right now, my favorite scone is whatever I create that's new because I think after 10 years of eating scones, I've decided that it's the new ones. No, and I'm serious about that. It's not.
yeah,
And then every once in a while, I like have one and I'm going, you know what? This is really good. No wonder people buy it. But it's, I would definitely say it's still the fig and goat cheese that I lean more toward than anything else.
so do you guys typically have like staples that are available on a daily or pretty primary basis, and then you kind of either seasonally or for different occasions, what have you,
yeah,
We,
add different?
we
Okay,
have
yeah,
like how
we
many?
constantly introduce 2 or 3 every month.
okay,
But I call them the standard 8.
okay,
Lemon poppy, vanilla, triple chocolate, pig and goat
Blueberry,
cheese,
cran.
the cranberry, the blueberry, cinnamon coffee cake, and cinnamon roll are always there.
okay,
Plus the bacon cheddar and chive, the garlic herb, and the jalapeno in terms of the savory ones are always there. Um, and then every month we put 2 or 3. Otherwise, it's just it's crazy. But we always have others as well, like the apple caramel, the banana chocolate chip. Those are always present. They just come in and out as additional
sure.
flavors.
That's awesome. Nice. Um, what seems to be the crowd favorite for you guys?
Blueberry's a cloud favorite, and so is the
Cranberry
bacon
and the
and the
cranberry
cranberry.
orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, you'd
I
think like a seasonal one would be the favorite. The seasonal
Right.
one kind of grabs people's attentions, but it's the old reliables that people
Yeah.
go for time and time and time again.
Absolutely. What is well, and this is for my own sake because I need to come and just see you guys because I am hungry, but I'm intrigued. I'm very very intrigued. I've not thought about the savory side of scones, and so that's something that I'm looking forward to. What's your address? What's the cafe's address? in Johns Creek?
It is 6955 McGinnis Ferry Road in
Guinness Ferry. Okay.
Johns Creek, Georgia. We're in the same, we're right next to St. Marlowe's, a little bit up from where
Okay.
141 and McGinnis Ferry intersect.
About a mile or so in.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And for our audience that is not in Atlanta, or for those of us who know Atlanta traffic that are in Atlanta that aren't going to be able to get up to Johns Creek that often, how do we order from you guys?
You can go to sevensistersscones.com and that
Okay.
you can order from us. We also are available at local farmers markets around Atlanta in Marietta.
Sandy Springs, Snellville, Tucker, Suwanee, which is very close to us.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So you guys are at that Marietta on Saturday mornings?
Yes, we are.
Awesome. That's a great farmer's market. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I have enjoyed my time. Is there anything that you guys would like to share with our audience from just being a business owner, working with your, a family member, just a little bit of a send off for us, if you will, of just kind of like, here's my thoughts. Will, I haven't been able to share it yet with you.
This is my recent thought. So I was listening to this podcast about AI,
Sure.
and I know that's something that's on everybody's thing.
Absolutely.
This man who's like he was head of Google X, and his name is Mo Godat. He did Solve for Happy and all these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Super intelligent guy, and he's like, I'm terrified. Like their AI is gonna be smarter than us within the next few years and all that. But he tells us to think of the world right now that the way AI learns is through our clicks and what we output into the world, right?
Yep.
We engage
Yep.
in what we output. So the best thing that we can do right now to save this beautiful world we live in and to be positive is to put everything that we can into being positive and into what we would want these quote unquote AI children
Yeah.
to learn. So I keep that in mind every day as I go on social media. And I think that's just like, if you're hesitant about doing what you really want to do, the world needs it now, I think, more than ever before. So go do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. You got anything for us, Hala?
Stick to it. If you believe in it, stick to it.
Absolutely. Believe in yourself and just go for it.
And sometimes
Awesome.
you won't know how it'll happen, but it will.
It will.
It will.
Yeah, the universe works in wild ways. I mean, even just, putting a smile on your face, smiling at others, getting that smile back, those energies are real. Those vibrations are real.
Yeah.
And the more you practice it, the more you'll see it, which is the most beautiful thing ever. It's like, just try it, and just kind of put yourself out there a little bit. Smile is not difficult to do. They're free, right? And start there and see how that energy goes. Listen, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time today. I'm encouraged by your story. I'm sure that our audience is as well. I look forward to meeting you both in person and finding some time to see you up there in Johns Creek. I'm also excited to know that if I need to get my weekly fix after I meet you, that I can grab it at the Marietta Market. So we're rocking and rolling. Again, thank you so much. Social media, we got the website, we've got ordering. Social media, you guys are on Instagram,
TikTok, Facebook, Seven Sisters Scones for like shipping, and Seven Sisters Kitchen for everything else for the cafe.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Listen, you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I look forward to talking again soon.
Same
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful one. See you. Bye-bye.